Good morning, everyone, once again, and welcome to the ninth annual Eye Care Summit. We hope that you're enjoying yourself at this moment. We've had some great presentations, and we have another great presentation by Miss Crystal Pichon, who is, by the way, one of our dedicated partners here at Eye Care. So we're always happy to see her. Crystal Pichon is also a graduate of Southeastern University and the CEO of the Safety Place. She has been an advocate for safety and prevention in the surrounding areas and the EBR community for the past 15 years. If you would like more information about Crystal and her bio, as well as her contact information, please visit the iCare website. And without further ado, we welcome you, Crystal Pichon, and we're happy to have you.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Let me make sure. Does everything look okay? You can still see my screen, right? All right. So, my name is Crystal Pichon. I'm the CEO of the Safety Place. We're a child safety and injury prevention nonprofit based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We're going to talk about safe driving, not just for if you have teenagers who are going to start driving. You're going to get a lot of tips on how to create those safe drivers on the road, but also hoping that you can get some tips to help maybe change some of your driving behaviors as well and find out how driving relates back to our health and what it does to our insurance rates and things like that. Hopefully, you could take home some tips for not only your young driver that is driving or starting to drive, but for yourself as well. So, the first thing I want to do is if you're able, if you're in a position where you're at a desk and you're able to write or anything like that, just make sure that you have a little piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. There will be an activity that comes a little later when I show a video that may require you to jot down some notes for you to, quit nothing like, a booklet or anything, but just some quick notes if you notice some changes that are happening during the activity. If you're not able to have a piece of paper and pen, that's fine as well. Just kind of go along with your eyes and try to log it in your brain as we go along. So we're going to go ahead on and get started. We have an hour packed of hopefully some fun activities and some things to keep you engaged. So, participating in this training will help drivers increase their safe driving knowledge and hopefully encourage you to change some of your behaviors and then pass that knowledge on to your young people who are going to be driving. So, the first thing we want to ask is what causes crashes? In most cases, it's not the road, it's not the car, it's the driver. Humans tend to blame someone else or something else when an incident occurs or a crash occurs. But a lot of times, the driver is to blame. It might not be you, the driver, but it may be someone else as the driver. So let's talk about being impaired before we get started. To be impaired is not only to be intoxicated by drugs and alcohol, to be impaired is to take your attention away from, not be as best, be your best. You're diminishing your ability, your value, your excellence. It's to weaken or to damage. So if you're sleepy, you're impaired. If you're drinking alcohol, you're impaired. If you're on drugs, you're impaired. If you're texting or talking on your phone, you're impaired. If your music is too loud, your hearing is impaired. If you can't see without your glasses and you're driving without your glasses, your vision is impaired. Daydreaming, selfies, posting on social media, all kinds of other things, eating and drinking. Being distracted is you being impaired. So it's really easy for us as drivers and as road users to point the finger and be very, very angry at someone who is selfish and decides to drink and drive and someone gets hurt or killed. But we also need to take accountability for other distractions that could have the same outcome as if someone were drinking and driving. All right. So just take a look at this chart. There's a lot of things on this chart, but for the sake of today's presentation, we're paying attention to the blue boxes, and that's unintentional injuries. So did you know that unintentional injuries are the number one cause of death for individuals ages 1 to 44? More unintentional injuries kill people than cancer, heart disease, sexually transmitted disease, or any other thing that you hear about that is hurting or killing people that needs to be prevented. These injuries are unintentional, meaning it wasn't done on purpose. But the thing is that they can be prevented. They are so preventable if we put steps in place to stop those injuries from happening. And if we knew how serious it was and how much it was happening, then maybe we would put more attention forward to stopping those unintentional injuries. So from 1 to 44 on that chart, you're going to see unintentional injuries. Sadly, suicide has made its way up to number 2. So our numbers are shifting, but no matter how our numbers shift, unintentional injuries remain the number 1 cause of death. And under the age of 1, those abnormalities, a lot of times that comes with suffocation or an infant who passes in their sleep. So that still has a lot to do with those unintentional injuries. Now, talking about those unintentional injuries, if we break those injuries down and you're like, unintentional injuries, what kind of injuries are you talking about? These are the injuries that we're talking about. So, under the age of 1, suffocation, your 1 to 4 is going to be drowning. 5 to 9-year-olds, those car crashes. 10 to 14, suicide. 15 to 24 is going to be those crashes. So those lighter blue boxes are going to tell you what kind of unintentional injury is related to a motor vehicle crash. So ranking 1, 2, and 3, crashes and unsafe driving falls somewhere on the ranking of the top 10 injuries that are causing death, rather it's ranked 1, 2, or 3 across different ages. So if we think about motor vehicle crashes and how preventable that is, we should be able to wipe this off the chart. But unfortunately, it has been on the chart for a very long time. It's not going anywhere. We are doing a lot better, but we have ebbs and flows. So it goes up and it goes down. But this should be something that we should be able to almost diminish if we put the things in place that we need to put in place to prevent those injuries and those deaths related to crashes. So let's talk about young people and teenagers right now. So when I say young drivers, for the sake of data, young drivers to us in the data world is going to be your teenagers all the way to age 24. Okay. So people would think, well, 24-year-olds, those are adults, those are grown-ups. But for the sake of data, the way that we track our data, young people go from your teenage years to age 24. So teenagers are 7% of the driving population, and they are 20% of the crashes. And that number is very lopsided, and it raises a lot of flags. So driving is a very distracting task to begin with. You can't only do one thing while you're driving. You have to do multiple things while you're driving. So driving is already a distracting task by itself. So to add anything else to your drive is just insane. So when you drive, you have to scan. You have to not only focus on your own driving, you have to be a defensive driver, which causes you to have to pay attention to other people's driving. You have traffic lights, traffic signs, pedestrians, bicyclists are now considered vehicles. So now you have to watch out for people on the road riding their bikes. To add anything else to things that you already have to pay attention to, which become distracting, it's insane. So when I'm driving, I have to scan the road. Did the light turn yellow? Is it about to turn red? And then you have a pedestrian who wants to cross, and then there's a bicyclist to the right of you. That is a lot to have to pay attention to at one time. So these listings on the screen are just a few of the things that are indicators of why young drivers are at such a high risk of death and injury when it comes to traveling on our roads. Distractions, number 1, hands down. And that's not only for young people up to 24, that's going to go all the way up to any driver, because driving is not exactly the most exciting thing in the world. So we get bored with it very easily. So distractions are easy to come by. Distractions, I mean, it could be your cell phone, it could be your radio, it could be other people in the car, it could be something outside of the car, it can be anything. Maturity. They say that as we get older, we're supposed to mature, but I know whole grown-ups who are not as mature as they should probably be. Okay. Some people say teenagers are immature. I typically like to say teenagers like to have fun. I'm not trying to steal anyone's youth or their joy. I want people to have a good time. I just want them to wait until they get somewhere safely, until they arrive alive, for them to have their most fun. There's a time to be mature. And that should definitely be while you're driving. And then, if you want to be a little less mature after you make it there alive and your trip has ended safely, then that's up to the individual. Your attention span, like I said before, driving is boring. Just like anything else, it's exciting in the beginning to our young people. And then once it happens for a while, you get used to it. It's just an everyday task. Insurance is too high. The gas costs too much money. And you get bored with driving. It's not as great as you thought it was. So when you get bored, what do? You add distractions to liven up your drive, to help you be unbored. A way to liven up the drive is to actually stay alive, is what I like to tell my young people. And a way to do that is focusing on safe driving. So if you're having fun while you're driving, you're probably doing something that you should not be doing. Okay. Experience. So when I'm talking to my young people about this, I'm sending them back to their parents with a message. Okay. Parents are agreeing to let them go to driving school and get their license. Are they agreeing to let you drive? Are you sending your child to driving school, or are you agreeing to actually send them to driving school and then let them drive to get the experience that they need to be able to be a good driver? Okay. So don't send your child to driving school if you're not ready to let them drive and get the experience that they need to be a good driver. Because when they get the experience that they need, they will be able to what? Move on to number 5 and identify those hazards that apparently they're not good at identifying. That comes with gaining experience. This helps them to know what may or may not be dangerous. Give them experience during the day, at night, when it's windy, when it's raining, different times of the day. What I don't want to happen is to have a person who gets in a situation where they're like, I didn't learn how to drive in this kind of condition. You need to give them as much experience as possible, within parameters to help them to be a safe driver, but giving them the experience that they need to be able to be a safe driver when you're in the car and also when you're not in the car with them. Number 6 would say that young people think that they're invincible. We tend to feel a little bit less of that as we get older. Invincible, they go by YOLO, you only live once, we all got to go somehow. And all of that may be true, but we don't want to go in a car crash. We don't want that to be the way that we go. We want to live a nice, long, healthy, extended life. We don't want it to be cut short because someone decided to participate in unsafe driving behaviors. Okay. You look at invincible people and you say, well, those kinds of things happen to other people. They don't happen to me. That is also an indicator of, invincible syndrome, or feeling that you're invincible in nature. Those things are not specific to those people. None of us are exempt. None of us. So to feel that something could not happen to us, those are the people that I worry about the most. Alcohol, it's not at the top of the list for this age group for young people, but it is on the list. And we'll talk a little bit more about alcohol later. And it's not only a problem with our young people, it's also a problem with our adults and even our mature adults, older in age. And then seatbelts. The single simplest way to help keep you safer in the car is just to wear your seatbelt. So, at our office, we say click that, and then we have a black and gold shirt that has Saints colors. So anything that we need to do to spicing up the message, to get people to see it, to understand it, to want to be a part of it, we do that. Okay. So wear your seatbelt, buckle up every trip, every time, whatever it is that we need to say to make people understand how important it is to wear your seatbelt, we are willing to do that. So, wearing your seatbelt, are you a yes or are you a no? Let me go back one. Okay. So, We know in life that 100% is not likely. So when we tell you to wear your seatbelt, we're saying that your chances of survival increases by 70% if you're wearing your seatbelt. There are a few exceptions, but they are few and they are rare. There's no 100% in life. So people tend to tell us, well, I don't wear my seatbelt because of this. I don't wear my seatbelt because of that. It's not 100% guarantee, but what in life is 100% guarantee? What is the purpose of a seatbelt? It is to keep you in your vehicle. It is to stop you from hitting other passengers in the vehicle if you were to have a hard break or a crash. If you're not buckled, you can be thrown from a vehicle. You could be crushed by a rolling vehicle. And people sometimes say, I don't wear my seatbelt because I have an airbag. Well, airbags are made to be used with a seatbelt, not instead of a seatbelt, which is why you see SRS, which stands for Supplemental Restraint System. So the airbag is a supplement to the seatbelt. It's not one or the other, it's both together for the maximum protection. Okay. Items that are not tied down will fly: purses, backpacks, tools, food, people. If you ever slammed on your brakes and everything went flying to the floor, that's just an example of how things fly if they're not tied down. Okay. So if you are doing everything that you need to do to be safe and you're the driver and you're wearing your seatbelt, but none of your backseat passengers are wearing their seatbelt, if you were to be involved in a wreck, those people are bouncing around like we're in a pinball machine, hitting everything and everybody until they come to a stop, which could be dangerous for you, even though you're doing the right things by wearing your seatbelts. I always have a one up. For any reason that someone could give me to not wear their seatbelt, there is always a one up. There is always a rebuttal. There is always a reason why you should. There are no reasons why you should not be wearing your seatbelt. As a driver, you're responsible for everybody in your vehicle. Everybody's happy and friendly until someone gets hurt or they get killed. So remember that as the driver, you're the captain of the ship and you're responsible for everyone's safety. You don't want something to happen, God forbid, and someone gets hurt in your car and they weren't wearing a seatbelt and now you're being sued. And now the law allows everyone in the car who's not wearing a seatbelt to get a ticket. So if you're in my car and you're not wearing your seatbelt, you will get a ticket. So it's not just the driver that can get tickets. People individually not wearing their seatbelts can get tickets as well. So, are you a yes or are you a no? Wearing your seatbelt is not just a good idea, it is the law, not only Louisiana law, but the law of physics. So, are you a yes with the shoulder belt over your shoulder and the lap belt over your lap? Or are you a no because you tuck the shoulder belt under your arm or you put the shoulder belt behind your back? When you tuck your seatbelt, you're turning it into a lap belt. A long time ago, they used to make vehicles with lap belts, and then they realized that something was missing and people were still getting hurt and killed when it came to wearing a lap belt. So, the only time you will ever see a lap belt in a vehicle now is if it's a very old vehicle or if you have a pickup truck in the center of this, the two front seats, there might be a little lap belt. The lap belt is not the safest option. Is it a better option than nothing? Yes, but it should be the absolute last resort. Everyone needs a lap and shoulder belt. And some dark humor for you when people are like, well, how unsafe is it? Again, a lap belt is better than no belt at all. Basically, the person that you like the least in the car, put them in the lap belt in case there was a wreck. That's how dangerous it is. And I'm not being serious, but it is really not a good option. If you could have a lap and shoulder belt, that is your safer option. Lap belts are great for installing car seats, not for installing people. So this next video is just going to be a slide that shows you what it looks like when you are wearing your seatbelt correctly and what it looks like when you're wearing your seatbelt incorrectly. Notice how far forward the person who tucked the seatbelt, the shoulder belt behind their back, moved forward. Look at that. So drop in the chat, what injuries is this bottom person experiencing? What are they experiencing? Look how much more forward tucking your seatbelt under your arm or behind your back allows you to move. This person may be sore, they may have a couple of injuries, but you better believe and guarantee that this person has a lot less injuries than this person. Okay? we got, I can't see the comments just yet, but you have head injury, you have neck injury, you have back injury. I mean, this little person here is triple jointed, so they probably got some arm and shoulder injuries. Lots of things. One more time, just for you to get a visual, because I'm a visual learner. A simple tucking your seatbelt under your arm or behind your back could significantly increase the amount of injuries and the types of injuries that you have. Okay, so this is a quick video that shows you with every one crash, how many wrecks actually take place. Who loves shopping? I love a good deal when I go shopping. I love buy three, get one free. I love three for the price of one. I love all of that. But this 3-for-1 deal is not one that you want. So for every one wreck, three wrecks actually happen. So when someone says that I've been involved in a wreck, they've actually been involved in three.
When one vehicle collides with another vehicle or object, the damages go far beyond bent metal and broken headlights. There are actually three stages of a typical collision. Each stage is unique and occurs quickly. The higher the speed, the more severe the outcome. The vehicle itself is the first to take the impact of a collision. Coming to an abrupt stop, the vehicle buckles and bends. This all happens in about 1/10 of a second. Following the vehicle crash is the human crash. The occupants hit some part of the vehicle, hopefully the safety belt and airbags. If the occupants are not wearing safety belts, they will continue traveling at the same speed as the vehicle was traveling, slamming into the dashboard, windshield, or some other part of the vehicle's interior. They may even collide with other passengers. When the occupant's body has come to an apparent stop, the internal organs are still moving, hitting other organs or bones in the body. This internal crash, though silent and not visible to the naked eye, can cause fatal injuries. Statistically, it's highly likely that you will be involved in several collisions during your lifetime. If you're lucky, the only damage sustained will be to your vehicle. Remember, a preventable collision is a collision in which the driver fails to do everything reasonable to avoid it.
Okay, so who can drop in the chat? What are the three crashes that happen with every one wreck? So you get in a wreck. What crash happens first? And then after that crash, then what are the other two crashes that happen after that? Okay, so the first crash is going to be when your vehicle hits something. And then the second crash is going to be when the human hits something. Hopefully, the human is hitting the seatbelt and not the dashboard or the windshield or the pavement. And then the third one, which is hidden, which is why we typically recommend that you receive medical care at least just to get a checkup, even if you think that you're okay, is going to be your internal collision where your organs are colliding on the inside of your body. That's where people may have internal bleeding. That would be an internal collision. That would be something that happened because of that. So if you've been involved in a wreck, we always recommend that you at least get a checkup just to make sure that there are no injuries or anything serious that you can't maybe see on the outside. Sometimes it's just soreness, but sometimes it could be a little bit more than that. Okay, so distracted driving. A lot of people are like, oh, when you're distracted, it's cell phones, it's social media, it's people taking selfies, and that's all true. But actually, distractions, there are three main types. There are three main types of distractions, and then there are sub distractions that go underneath each main distraction, just so that you can understand how distractions actually work. And if I wanted to add a fourth distraction, a main distraction, I could do visual, mental, manual, and then I can add auditory if I wanted to. But your main three types are going to be the three that you see on the screen. Visual causes you to take your eyes off. Manual causes you to take your hands off the wheel. And then cognitive causes you to take your mind off driving. And if we wanted to add that fourth, the auditory, it impairs your hearing. Okay, so remember when we're talking about impairment. So let's take it a step further and look at some different types of distractions and place them in their respective categories, right? So, lost in thought. We're human. This happens to everybody. You daydream, you start thinking about things that you have to do, and you just kind of like, you snap yourself back into place. All right. So that would be a mental distraction. Cell phones, mental, you taking your mind off of the drive. Visual, you're looking at your phone. Manual, you're taking your hands off of your wheel, off of the wheel to text. So just look at all these different kinds of distractions that could take place in a car while you're driving and see where they're filed in their respective categories. All distractions are not created equally. Some distractions are more dangerous than others, but they all have risk and they can all be considered dangerous if they happen at the wrong place and at the wrong time. Where we get into trouble is that people try to find loopholes for why the distraction that they want to participate in is not as bad and not as dangerous as what other people think. Loopholes are what gets you in trouble, okay? Oh, well, I'm going to use my cell phone, but it's not a manual distraction because I'm going to talk to Siri and I'm going to talk to text. Well, you're still going to be, sorry about that, y'all. The office phone is ringing. You're still going to be distracted. Okay. Now, are you talking to Siri or are you putting your hands on the cell phone and texting as well? One may seem to be better than the other, but the loophole doesn't make you any safer. So when you're thinking about distractions, just know that these distractions are a lot of times more dangerous than what you think it is. All right, so pay attention to this video, just a quick activity to get your mind working. Do what the video tells you to do. All right, there's going to be two teams. You're going to pay attention to the one color that the video tells you to pay attention to.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? Go! The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear? Go!
Okay, so that video is just a quick little activity to show you how easily it is to miss something when your focus is not completely there. So think to yourself, were you able to count how many passes were made by the team? Did you see the bear the first time? Some people typically get a glance of something and they're like, what was that? Some people see it, most people don't. That's what happens. Let's just put it into terms because we're talking about basketball players and bears right now. Let's say that instead of counting how many times the ball is passed, you're looking down to see what a quick text message says. And instead of a bear is someone's child. Okay, so compare that video to something that may be real life. Okay, the dangers are there. It's scary. The outcomes are still the same. So just to let you know, as well as we think that we can multitask and glance up and down, we're not as good as we think that we are. So let's review. We just went over the three main distractions, possibly the fourth if you wanted to add auditory. And then I have some images up on the screen. Just kind of say to yourself, since you've learned the categories and the different distractions, file these images in their respective categories. So remember, we said a cell phone. A cell phone takes your eyes off the road. It takes your hands off the wheel. It takes your mind off the drive. someone who is talking to you in the vehicle. They could be a visual distraction because in Louisiana, down in the South, we're polite. It's polite to look at people when they're talking to you, but I don't want that to happen when you're driving. I don't want you to look at me. I want you to look at the road. If you're a hand talker, if you use your hands to talk, it could be a manual distraction if you take your hands off the wheel. And then mentally, it's a mental distraction because you're processing the conversation. If you're eating, if the apple is really juicy and it just blows your mind, that is a mental distraction. If you're holding your apple in your hand, that is a manual distraction. If you look at your food before you eat it, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, most of us do that. Okay. Don't look for loopholes. I have people all the time that say, well, what if your passenger feeds it to you? The loophole is what is going to get you in trouble. Your radio, changing your controls. Manual, if you're touching it. Visual, if you're looking at it. I typically ride in silence, no radio. I like my quiet time when I'm in the car. It's my time to decompress. I know where the radio is. I know where the controls are, but just out of habit, my eyes follow my hand. So if my hand is going to go to turn the radio on, my eyes are going to follow even for just a second. So you have a visual distraction. You have a manual distraction. If the beat drops and it's your jam and you just remember the good old days where you were at the barbecue and you jamming and you get to swaying, that is a cognitive distraction. If the radio is too loud, it is an auditory distraction, which is that fourth. Okay, so we could argue that the radio, it's getting up there with the cell phone. Okay. And then if you're grooming could be shaving. It could be slicking your eyebrows down. It could be putting lotion on. It could be anything, but visually you're looking, manually you're touching, mentally you're trying to focus on not stabbing yourself in the eye with your eyeliner or cut yourself with your razor. Okay, so it's important that you're able to file these distractions just to get a good idea of how dangerous they actually are. All right. So for the sake of time, I'm going to graze past this slide. And if we have time at the end, I'm going to come back and I'm going to play this slide for you all. This is the one where you needed paper and pen. So Louisiana law, there are lots of laws. We can stand here all day and talk about traffic laws and what happens if you break the laws. Laws are not just to make money. Laws are not just to have the man tell you what to do. Laws are literally put in place for traffic safety to help save lives. Okay. Did you know that first offense, if you receive a ticket for texting and driving, it's $500. And if there's a second offense, then it's $1,000. It doesn't matter if you hit send. It doesn't matter if it was a short text versus a long text. That's a lot of money to pay for a text message. There are seatbelt laws. Everybody in the vehicle has to buckle up. That means you can get a ticket, I can get a ticket, and anybody else in the car can get a ticket. Okay. And it's important that drivers remember that having your license and driving is a privilege. It's not a right. That goes for young people and that goes for people who are older and mature. It doesn't matter what age you are. It's a privilege. And if you don't do the right things, then that privilege can be taken away. If you have young people who are driving, there's a 3-step program that they're going to go through. It's not like back in the day when you went in at 14 or 15 and you got your license and that was it. Now you have a 3-step process and there are rules that are listed underneath each process that have to be fulfilled before a young driver can get their full unrestricted license. And it's called a graduated driver's licensing program. So if you have a young person who's going to be driving soon, make sure you take a screenshot of this. If you want more information on it, I'll put my contact information in at the end so that you can ask any questions or receive any information about this process that you need. There's a lot there. I'm not going to read it all off to you, but just know that under each section, there are a list of rules and a list of things that you have to do for your child to be able to move on to the next phase of getting their full driver's license. This program, this process is proven to work. Rather than just giving everything up front, Data has shown that if you have them graduate and prove skills before moving on to the next step, that you are creating a safer driver and that we are going to reduce the amount of crashes, deaths, and injuries in young people when getting their driver's license. Impaired driving. It's not worth the risk. These are some of the things that can happen to you if you find yourself with a DUI or being arrested for drinking and driving. None of it is worth it. Okay. How old do you need to be to legally consume alcohol in Louisiana? We say 21, and that is the truth. But here's the deal. There is law that at 18 you are considered an adult. So if a young person wanted to drink alcohol with their parent at the age of 18 under their parent's supervision, then that is a parental choice. I don't see where that is going to last very much longer, especially since we have been successful, in recent years in changing the smoking law. So hopefully that will change, because what we do know about drinking is the younger you are when you drink, the more likely you are to develop an addiction, alcoholism. Teens are suffering a lot of consequences for drinking and driving. They're losing scholarships. They're not able to play sports because they think just a sip here, a sip there is going to be fine. So what you think in your head, for our young people, what they would think is one drink's not going to hurt me. Okay. But you don't know, in your brain, you're saying one thing, but you don't know what your body is going to do. That is the risk of addiction. You think that you're going to try something one time or a couple of times and it's going to be fine, but your body may say something different. Your body may say, "Ooh, I like this. I need this all the time, every time. As much as I can get it, I want it." And young people oftentimes don't possess the skills or the maturity or the knowledge to know that although they think they're going to do something just this one time, and in this one time that couldn't possibly affect their entire life, it actually can. So we need to make sure that we are having these honest conversations with our young people about alcohol and about drugs, and how it's not all just about relaxing and having a good time and being in the moment. It's about focusing on what one decision can do to the rest of our lives. It's about how what we do now can affect us later. It's about what can happen when your abilities have been diminished because your body and your nervous system are now depressed because they're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. We are not our best selves when we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. And it's important that we don't try to hide these things from our young people. We have these conversations with them and get them involved in the conversation, because if we've learned anything, it's that young people like to be involved and help with the solution of the problem. They don't want to feel like something's wrong with them. They don't want to feel like they need to be fixed. They deserve the opportunity to give input and to be able to be a solution to the problem. All right, quick video for alcohol and how it affects the brain, I think.
Have you ever wondered why it's such a crime to drive after a few beers? 5 minutes after your first drink, alcohol reaches your brain and starts to interfere with the way cells communicate. First, you lose the ability to assess risks. Then it affects your capacity to make decisions. After a few beers, you've lost your ability to handle complex problems. This becomes a serious danger when you drive. You can still change gear and steer, but what's missing are those higher skills that handle things like emergencies. Most nights you'll get home, but if something goes wrong, you're gone.
Okay, so Age 15 to 20 is when addiction typically begins. 17 to 20% of alcohol sales are from underage drinkers. Females get drunker quicker and are more likely to black out than our young men. These are things that, you know, that young people don't know. Heck, those are things that older people don't know. When consuming the age alcohol, before the age of 21, we talked about alcoholism being more of a risk. We as drivers should not be willing to take so many risks with our lives as if we're playing just a game of Monopoly. It's technically, not a game, but we're playing a game of life here. We're trying to save lives. So, when young people they ask a lot of questions when we do this presentation, and they're very interested in about in alcohol and drugs and how it affects their bodies and what can be done in this, that, and the other. And they're even comfortable enough to talk to our law enforcement officers about this to get the answers that they need. We also want them to feel comfortable talking to you as their parents or as a trusted adult, to be able to have these conversations with them, to equip them with the knowledge that they need to make very smart and informed decisions when they're left to make those decisions unsupervised. Okay. We're also talking to them about never riding with an impaired driver. We oftentimes talk about not drinking and driving, but what about not riding with someone who's been drinking? What about what these young people can do to speak up for themselves if they feel uncomfortable or if they feel unsafe? So first of all, buzz, tipsy, drunk, wasted, those are slang terms. Those are terms that someone made up. Those are not scientifically proven at any level being different from one another. Okay. Your only choices are, have you been drinking or have you not been drinking? The amount of alcohol that you've consumed, how fast you drank it, did you eat something, how much do you weigh? Are you a male or are you a female? How does your body metabolize alcohol? Okay. These are all things that we take into consideration when we talk about drinking and driving and if someone's drunk. Now, we have a blood alcohol concentration, BAC. We have legal limits. 0.08, that is considered, if you're above the legal limit, then you are considered drunk. And that puts you in a different category when it comes to if you're going to be arrested or not. If you're under the age of 21, it is going to be 0.02, which is a significantly less amount of alcohol. It's not very much alcohol at all. That's for young people who are under the age of 21 who are participating in drinking alcohol. Okay, so no matter if you are 0.08 or 0.21, if we get in a crash and you hurt someone that I love, my first question is not going to be, well, were they 0.08 or were they 0.17? That's not going to matter to me. That's not going to make a difference to me. And it surely will not make a difference to you if it's someone that you love. Okay. The consequences are the same. So no matter which way you look at it, alcohol should never be coupled with a vehicle, underage or not. Your designated driver, it's a good idea to have one. With the way that Uber and Lyft and all these other options that we have, there's no reason to drink and drive. Your designated driver is not the one who had the least to drink. It's the one who had nothing to drink at all. It's the one who is not impaired in any kind of way. Slow your roll. The faster you go, the longer it takes for you to stop. There are no roads other than NASCAR that are allowing you to do 100 miles an hour, and that between 80 and 100 seems to be a normal occurrence on any I-10 or I-12 that I've been driving on. And I just try to stay out of those people's way because I assume they have somewhere to get and somewhere to get quickly. And I hope it's home and not anywhere else. Okay. But I try my best to stay out of their way. The faster you drive, it affects how quickly you can react in an emergency. It takes you longer to stop, and it increases your chances of actually being involved in a wreck because it's more difficult to control your vehicle the faster that you're going. Whatever reason you're in a hurry for, it's not a good reason, because if you don't make it there, being that you needed to get there so quickly, then what was it all for anyways? Okay, a tardy for young people is better than an insurance increase, a hospital bill, or a casket. So just make sure that, our young people are watching us. You can't ask them to do things that you're not willing to do yourself. So just make sure that we're always setting a good example. Do you create an atmosphere in your vehicle where young people feel comfortable speaking up to you? They may feel more comfortable speaking up to their peers if their peers are doing something that makes them feel uncomfortable, but how comfortable are they speaking up to you as an adult? And how do you and are you setting an example? Are you setting the stage for them to actually speak to you and say, please don't do that, you're making me nervous, or you're making me feel uncomfortable, or that's not safe? We have to create those environments for our young people to feel comfortable speaking up, even if it's a parent, even if it's someone who's older than them. We have to get out of the habit of, you only need to be seen and not heard. Our young people have voices, and they should be able to speak up about things that make them feel unsafe or uncomfortable without feeling like it's going to get them in some kind of trouble. So just make sure that you remember your habits reflect on the way that your child drives and how they feel, heck, mentally and physically. Because if you're like me, I'm typically the driver because I get a little bit of anxiety when people drive me. I also get a little bit of motion sickness. But just make sure that you are creating an environment that is safe for a young person or anybody in your vehicle to feel comfortable. So these are just a couple of things that you need to look out for. Like what are your positions? What should you look like when you're driving? Do you look like a safe driver? Are you being a safe driver? We now have to share the road with bicyclists because they are considered vehicles, and pedestrians. Okay? Do you know what these bike hand signals mean when you're driving? If you see me riding on my bike and I stick my hand out to the left, do you think I'm waving at you, or do you think I'm telling you that I'm turning left or right? Or do you know that I'm about to stop and slow down and not to run into the back of my bike? Okay. So these are hand signals that bicyclists will use when they're on the road because bikes don't have blinkers. So our hands are our blinkers. Our arms are our blinkers. Our helmets should be our seatbelts. That should be our protection when we're out on the road when vehicles. So just make sure that you're paying attention to your driving, but you're also paying attention to your surroundings and other road users that might be out there with you on the road. What can you do? You need to evaluate. It's not just about sending your kid to driving school and thinking that they're going to get everything that they need and everything that they need to know from driving school. You are going to have to take it steps further than driving school for your kid to really be able to be a safe driver. So you need to evaluate, get informed, get information. You need to study and get your research about how you can be a good teacher to your child when teaching them how to drive. Start talking to them now before they start driving. If they've already started driving and there are some things that need to be fixed, it's never too late. As long as they're still here, it's never too late to start talking about different behaviors that need to be changed and being able to admit when you're wrong. If you like, I know, you don't need to text and drive. And they're like, but you text and drive. That's not an opportunity for you to tell them to mind their own business. That's an opportunity for you to say, you know what? You're absolutely right. Just as painful as it would be for me to lose you because you were texting and driving, it would be just as painful for you to lose me because I was texting and driving. Take those opportunities to grow, to have conversations with our youth. Um, Make sure that passengers in the car are not distracting our drivers. That means you. I see a lot of parents who are so excited that their young people are driving and they're like, uh-oh, Bobby's getting on the road, watch out. And they are posting lives on social media with Bobby driving. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to see this because I don't want to bear witness. Don't distract your kids because you're excited for them and you're social media living and taking photos while they're driving. You should be focused on their driving and helping them drive safely, not being the distraction that they don't need in the vehicle. Make sure that you're involved. Don't be the parent that's like, woo, thank goodness, I got a chauffeur. I don't have to look at anything, do anything. I can just sit, I can text, I can talk, I can email, I can do whatever I want. Make sure that you're involved in their drive, and then make sure that you're setting a good example for them as well. Okay. So, what can you do? These are just a list of things that we have talked about in the presentation. And these are also some additional things that you can do, not only for yourself to be a safe driver and keep yourself safe during driving, but also help to create safe young drivers. What a lot of people don't know is that our insurance rates and our medical rates are not solely dependent on just us. We get a state grade. So, although I'm a good driver and I don't get in any wrecks, I get my discounts for my insurance, but what you do also affects my rate. So I don't know about any of you, but I am sick to death of the constantly increasing vehicle insurance and medical insurance rates because of our state grade. That's how they review that. The car insurance companies as a group look at our state grade for crashes, how many deaths, how many injuries, how much medical have we billed due to crashes, and all of that takes in effect for how much we pay for insurance every month and what our premiums are every year. So when you get a statement in the mail and you see an increase, it's it's easy to get mad and blame the insurance company, but we need to look outside of that and figure out why our rates are increasing. It's because of us. It's because of people's driving behaviors and the amount of wrecks that we're getting in and the amount of medical care that it takes to sustain the amount of wrecks and injuries and deaths that we're facing on our roads. Teen driving agreements. Check with your insurance company to see what programs and resources are available for your teen driving and even discount programs for yourself. So many offer free parent guides and contracts to help keep drivers safe. You can get discounts for safe driving for your young person and even for making good grades. There are options. So just make sure you check with your respective insurance company. Most of them have their own programs that you can enroll in. And for yourself, putting the little beacons in your car, that also helps you to get discounts and make sure that you're driving safely. It's not only incentives for the young people, but it can be incentives for you as well. So this is basically me on social media when I watch people go live and take selfies and film TikToks while they're driving. Again, I never watch it until the end because I don't want to bear witness to a person crashing on live or anything like that. But, just a plea from me personally and professionally to focus on your drive and nothing else. You can handle your social media when you arrive in one piece. No post is worth it, and nobody wants to bear witness to someone crashing on a social media platform. We can't only focus on texting and driving anymore because we're just way past that now. People are not only texting and driving, and more than texting and driving, people are Snapchatting, they're TikToking, they're going live, they're taking selfies. It's really social media and driving has superseded the amount of texting and driving that is taking place. And that's not just with teenagers, that's with parents. Heck, even grandparents are doing it now. Okay, so we have a little bit of a problem on our hands with the growing industry of social media. And here are our social media platforms, just in case you guys want to follow along. And I want to check in with our moderators. I'm looking at the timer. It says that we're at an hour, but I know the presentation doesn't end until 45 minutes after. So should we stop for questions and answers right now, or do we have a few minutes for the activity?
You have a few more minutes left. You have about 6 minutes left. I'm not sure how long your activity will take.
Okay,
I
can stop it at any point. So what I'll do is, does everybody have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen? This activity, I won't play the whole video, but it really does make you realize that we're not as great as we think we are. So I'm just going to play this and I will stop it just when I see my timer is just before, so I can make sure that you don't have any questions or anything like that.
Hello, this is a program about the dangers of distracted driving. I'm sure that most people probably have a pretty good idea what the term distracted driving means. You might hear someone describe distracted driving as texting and driving, reading while driving, eating, painting your nails, or taking a selfie while driving. All of these actions and more can contribute to a crash caused by having your mind, eyes, or hands off driving. Driving safely requires a good deal of attention and focus on the road, scanning and evaluating changing road conditions, and taking actions when necessary to avoid a crash. However, understanding how distractions impact our attention and our focus may help us to be more diligent in taking some simple steps to avoid a potentially crippling and life-altering crash. Distracted driving is really a result of two types of mental blindness called change blindness and inattention blindness. This program looks at change blindness and how our mind is limited in its capacity to notice subtle changes in our driving environment that, unless acted on, can result in devastating consequences. In a moment, you will see a dramatization of a distracted driving crash, which demonstrates change blindness.
How many letters? 5 letters. Just think about, what am I doing right now? Smile. Smile? Uh-huh. This is so easy.
As you watch this video clip, did you notice how the driver shifts her glance between looking at her phone and looking ahead? The driver's inability to see important changes in her driving environment led to a crash. The driver assumes that by looking up every few seconds, she is doing an adequate job of driving safely, but is in effect driving blind before she enters the intersection. Many drivers are great at believing that they are immune to such effects as change blindness. We will now put that belief to the test. You will be a driver in some driving situation. You will see the driving scene, but will be momentarily distracted for about 1 second from that scene. When your glance is back to the driving scene, see if you can identify what's changed. You will have a sheet of each driving scene for you to record what's changed. Beware, not all scenes have changes, so you have to be extra diligent in your observational powers. Let's do an example scene before we begin. See if you can notice the change.
All right, y'all, I'm going to pause there just because we're right at time. The activity that you just did with trying to notice the change. So just drop in the chat if you noticed the change after the distraction. Did everybody see what the change was, or were you sitting there waiting for something to happen and you didn't notice that anything had changed? Good job, Chantel. So Chantel said she's paying attention. She will not be hitting any pedestrians. Not today and not ever. Very good. So that activity, I mean, the video is longer and we would go through several series of activities to see if you can notice the change. A lot of people think that they can shift like the driver in the video and that looking up and down makes it safer. But in that moment that you look down, that might be the very moment that a ball rolls in the street and somebody's child runs out to get it. So you need to make sure that not just every couple of seconds you're looking up, that you're always looking up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So that you can see me, and I will let the moderators pop in. And I'm able to actually see the comments now. I saw people say, I saw 10, I saw 12 for the
Right.
video. Sorry, y'all. One missed count is a fail. I forgot to tell you, you had to get 13 out of 13 for me to give you a good grade.
Crystal, thank you so much. This presentation, and then, of course, like you said, you can see the comment section. It was powerful. People are saying it was informative. And I can tell you, I had a range of emotions. And so I appreciate the content, the statistics, as well as some of the dark humor, as you mentioned, but just very powerful for all ages. It's great. And so also, thank you to all of the participants watching and viewing today. We truly appreciate you all. And as you know, you can always reach out to eye care for any prevention needs. We are here at the office at times and also within the schools. So please, please, please reach out if you ever need us. And this is just a friendly reminder. We do have our evaluations listed afterwards. And so the cutoff time is 4:30. So please remember to fill out all evaluations so that you're able to get certificates or CEUs if needed. And once again, Crystal, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone else who's on our session today.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Great job.
Thank you, Felicia. This was
I
wonderful.
know
Thank you.
Crystal is gone already, but she did
Oh,
a really good job.
this was great.
I know. I've said this is something I think that they should still share, like at the high school level in the
Right.
with classes, because it does, even if it's presented at driver's ed, it's still a really, really good information to remind the students of,
That's right. And a
especially
lot.
that the 3 parts of the crash.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And she had such great visuals and very interactive. And they do come out to the schools as well. And so we like our parents to know that, and our principals, so that if they need us, we can reach out to say.
But I like to say yes. But the activities and being able, because I didn't notice the change.
Me either. Me either. Me either. Me either.
So
So
I
I
was like,
see some
okay,
other
wait.
people in the chat saying hello. Hello, Pam. Good to see you all. And so we'll go ahead and we'll end this session at this moment. We appreciate everybody for participating.
All
Thank you all.
right. No problem. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.